It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Well, today we're going to jump on the interactive board. I want to go through Xerox's second quarter numbers. Ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you something. I was on the earnings call this morning, and I was really amazed. A financial analyst asked the CEO of Xerox a question. And the question was regarding the Department of Homeland Security banning Ninestar, Lexmark's owners, and 8 subsidiaries for bringing products into the U.S. supply chain based on the UFLPA. And the analyst was asking, is this going to affect Xerox because Xerox does things with Lexmark? Was the premise of the question. But ladies and gentlemen, just because our industry is not talking about this doesn't mean the world all around our industry is ignoring it. I was really amazed that the financial analyst brought this into the conversation in the earnings call. Stephen answered her question the way that I expected him to answer it, just like a lot of the other OEMs in our space are answering it. Everybody thinks it's outrageous that anybody would use slave labor. Everybody realizes that they need to check their entire supply chain and check it once and twice and 3 times. But as I told you before in a previous episode, the day that the world outside of Ninestar, and when I say the world, I mean our industry, realizes that they have clean supply chains, Lexmark and Ninestar are done. And this is the reason why our industry needs to be able to talk about it. This is the reason why we can't be hiding from it. And that analyst today proved to me that now the people that control the money are paying attention. A lot of times, we got to wait till it affects the money. And then everybody says, oh, better pay attention to that. But folks, that question will get asked again at the next quarter. And the reason the financial analysts are asking questions regarding Ninestar is because financial analysts realize the impacts to any business when the public gets outraged by some activity. Financial analysts realize the impacts of any business, especially a publicly traded business, when the end users become aware of something outrageous. This should be an eye-opener, and this better be an awakening for our entire industry. Now let's talk about Xerox's numbers, and at the end of today's episode, I want to share some thoughts regarding the BTA put out an announcement. They finally took Ninestar's logo off their website. I'll share some thoughts on that. But folks, here's the deal. Top line revenue for Xerox for the quarter was $1.6 billion, almost $1.7 billion. They had $107 million in segment profit at 6.5%. Congratulations, Xerox. You know, Xerox, like all of our players in our space, to maintain flat revenue is actually a good thing. Of course, the analysts don't like to see that. But at the end of the day, Xerox will come in at that $7 billion number this year. I don't see any reason why they won't. Xerox made some announcements today that their licensing agreement, or their royalties from the licensing agreement with Fuji, will end. So no more revenue from that. We'll see how that impacts them next quarter. But folks, the bottom line is, one of the things the analysts are getting closer at is really forcing the OEM, or forcing the players in our space, I should say, to tell them where they're making money outside of print. They're this close. They just don't quite ask the question the right way. And I believe it's because they don't understand the relationships that print providers have with end users. I think if they truly understood those relationships, it would open up their imaginations to ask better questions, if you will. But I think the day's coming because, you know, I've been listening to these quarterly earnings calls with Xerox for a few years now. And I've noticed that each time the analysts are getting a little bit better at this. And sooner or later, they are going to put a whole lot of scrutiny on our industry and force them to describe how they're making money outside of printer hardware and printer service. The day's coming for sure. If you look at the equipment sales for Xerox for the second quarter, it's $420 million. Post sales are $1.3 billion. Again, they're flat. They had some growth in hardware. And they're excited about the growth in hardware. They mentioned A3, and I'll just tell you this: the future of our industry is not A3, and everybody knows that. And all the growth that we're going to see in the hardware part of our businesses for this next year, for the rest of this year, is really just a reaction to the complacency of a really bad supply chain, if you will. Things are kind of getting back to normal. We've had all these salespeople pounding on people for the last 2 or 3 years, and we're starting to see customers just, all right, let me just buy another A3. But folks, everything we do this year in our industry and everything we do next year in our industry, just remember, all that equipment that's going into those accounts around print is going to be renewed in 3 to 5 years. And when it's renewed in that 3 to 5 years, it's going to be nothing like what's going on now. Some of the print won't even be renewed. We all should expect that, right? Most of the print will be renewed for a lot less revenue in the hardware side and the service side. And that's why the analysts are trying to figure out, where's the money going to come from when we no longer have print? When I was at the Xerox meeting in Miami, and I did a recap on that, I thought it was a great meeting. I think they have a great vision. They're trying to take this giant ship and reinvent it. They're trying to make it about services. They're trying to do things in these accounts based on the knowledge they have of these accounts. They're trying to figure out how to use generative AI and folks, and augmented reality and digital transformation. And they can do these things for end users, but what they have to be able to do is to clearly define to the financial community how these things they do for these end users are going to give them revenue and profit. And they've got to start doing that now, whether that's Xerox, Konica, All Covered, all these folks. They got to start being able to articulate how we're making money outside of print. Because sooner or later, the financial community is going to realize there is no going back with print. There is absolutely no growth, only massive declines from print. And so they want to be able to be comfortable with the future direction of any company that's core deliverable is print. Ladies and gentlemen, their full year guidance, they do expect their revenue to be flat or down. It's just the reality, okay? They're going through this major transformation. But I'll tell you this, they're going to have an operating margin between 5.5% and 6.5%. We got folks out in our space that would love to have 5 and 6% operating profit. And they're able to maintain their profitability. They talk about returning at least 50% of free cash flow back to shareholders. And I've said this before, this is where I believe that Xerox is really going to have some really tough headwinds. Because in order to diversify into all these other things they want to do, and I quite believe they have an opportunity to do them like anybody else, and they could be successful. But it's going to be extremely costly to do it. And as long as they can balance cutting the costs out of the core deliverable of print, because they're going to have to reapply additional costs to the diversification, it's going to be tough to go back and give a lot of money back to shareholders. This is why I wish they could just get off the market, go private, turn that ship around and transition, and then come back out into the public. I wish they could do that. But ladies and gentlemen, this will be a struggle for all those big mega dealers too. Those private equity groups, they're not going to let you take all the profits and invest it and grow it and diversify and change the whole company. That's why we see some of these big roll-up mega, as far as I'm concerned, they're just, sucking all the money out of the company. There's nothing wrong with that. But they're not going to be able to diversify and do all these other things in these customers' offices without investing in that transition. And it's going to be really, really tough. I wish Xerox the greatest luck. And Xerox, I will tell you, because you were asked first publicly about the Ninestar thing, that we're going to have to address that with some real teeth, I guess, if you will, very, very soon, along with all of the industry's actors. This issue is not going away, I assure you. So now, I got an email. Actually, I got about 85 emails where people sent me the response that the BTA had put out regarding Ninestar on their website. BTA, I'm glad you took it off. I read the response. I got a couple issues with it. I'll do a separate episode on this as I talk more about some thoughts regarding the panel discussion that you're all putting together at your BTA Boston meeting. And I'll probably do that episode on Wednesday. But I do commend you all for doing this. This is fantastic. You know, and we don't need to support any organization that's been banned by the Department of Homeland Security. We just don't need to do it. And so I thank you all. I did go to their website, by the way. Hang on a second, folks, because I got to share this with you. I've been sharing it on there, so I want to make sure that I share it with it off there. So no Ninestar. Again, thank you very much, BTA Board, for doing that. Ladies and gentlemen, our industry's got a tough challenge in front of us. We got this challenge around this sanction. We got the financial community now talking about this sanction and how it's going to impact Xerox as an example. We got a panel discussion coming up at the BTA meeting in August. But here's the reality. We can't pretend this isn't an issue. And we can't be so afraid to talk about it. And we have to be out in front of this. Because everybody watching me knows this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.